This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
It's precisely 1:15. This is the news on Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News is edited by Danushka Madhavela and read by Sabrina Zawahir. First, the headlines. Measures are being taken to import the vaccines for the people in the country within shorter period of time. More than 8.5 million vaccines have already arrived in the country. New Finance Minister discusses the future economic activities in the country. The central bank says the country's economy shows a remarkable growth during pandemic. The government will inspect the food hygiene in the market. And in world news, Abiy Ahmed wins with huge majority in Ethiopian election. And in sports news, Argentina won the Copa America beating Brazil. Now the local news in detail. Army Commander Shavendra Silva says that measures have been taken to import the vaccines for the people in the country within shorter period of time. More than 8.5 million vaccines have arrived in the country by this morning. More than 1 million doses are available for the second dose as well. It is the normal practice to inculcate the second dose after 1 month from the first dose. 1.4 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccines are to be arrived in the country within few days. It will be given as the second dose for the people who obtain the first AstraZeneca dose. Pfizer vaccine will be given for the students who are willing to travel abroad for European countries for higher studies. More than 1,000 students were given the Pfizer vaccine at present. Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa met the ministers and Finance Ministry officials recently and discussed regarding the future economic activities in the country. He said that the government focuses its attention mostly on the inland agriculture. The meeting focused on special attention on several sectors, including agriculture, livelihood, social infrastructure, facilities, public security, and social development. The meeting paid its attention to uplift the livelihood of the people who are affected by the COVID pandemic. The Finance Minister instructed officials to discuss with the Health Ministry to reopen soon the public institutions which serve the general public. Central Bank Governor Professor W.D. Lakshman said that the focus of the government and the central bank is to make Sri Lanka a debt-free economy in the future by managing domestic and foreign debt well. However, he said that does not mean that the country would be a debt-zero economy. The focus will be on enhancing the performance of the real sectors of the economy, such as promoting exports and developing the agriculture, services and industrial sectors, he said. Statistics, however, reveal that the trade deficit had widened with an increase in imports in relation to exports this year. In spite of the resilience shown by merchandise exports, the trade deficit widened from January to May this year over the corresponding period last year. Speculation of a program with the International Monetary Fund were refuted by the governor. However, the regulator expects growth in the first quarter this year to be higher than the initial forecast and overall GDP growth this year to be around 5% due to the vaccination drive and the recovery in economic activities. The central bank notes that the economy is likely to have recorded a higher than expected growth rate in the first quarter of 2021, although GDP estimates for the first quarter this year have not been released by the Department of Census and Statistics. The bank noted that indicators for several key sectors of the economy point towards a stronger than expected recovery during the quarter. Director Economic Research Central Bank Dr. Chandranath Amarasekara said that the bank could expect a higher growth rate in the first quarter this year due to the all-time high performance in the industrial sector. Disturbances to domestic economic activities due to the third wave of the pandemic and related preventive measures weakened the recovery somewhat in the second quarter of 2021. Nevertheless, the ongoing vaccination drive throughout the country and the likely removal of mobility restrictions are expected to ease the impact of the current wave of COVID-19 on overall economic activities, thereby facilitating a sustained economic recovery towards achieving a GDP growth rate of around 5% in 2021. Along with the expected recovery in the global economy and the improvements on the domestic front, the upward momentum of economic activities is envisaged to sustain over the medium term. The external sector is expected to gradually recover in the period ahead. Challenges emanating from the multiple waves of COVID-19 globally and domestically continued to stifle the recovery of the tourism industry. The exchange rate has recorded a depreciation of 6.7% against the US dollar thus far during the year. The central bank will continue to monitor domestic and global macroeconomic and financial market developments and stand ready to take appropriate measures as and when necessary with the aim of maintaining inflation in the targeted 4 to 6% range under the flexible inflation targeting framework in the medium term while supporting sustained economic recovery. This news is brought to you by Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
People's Bank, celebrating 60 years of empowering the nation.
Continuing local news, the government will inspect the hygiene condition of the food items being sold to consumers. Several issues were reported during the past period. A committee has been appointed under the leadership of the Secretary of the Ministry of Health to look into this matter. The committee should submit their report within 1 month. The Disaster Management Centre says that more than 12,000 persons from around 3,000 families have been affected with the present inclement weather situation. 1 person has died and around 300 persons are housed at 8 centres at present. 50 divisional secretariats in 8 districts were affected badly. Few houses were also damaged due to the bad weather, and the Sri Lankan Army and Navy have joined the relief activities. That ends local news. The main news story follows.
Towards a new dimension in innovation, People's Bank, celebrating 60 years of empowering the nation.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Another 2 million doses of China's Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccine have been brought to Sri Lanka from Beijing this morning. Sri Lankan Airlines said 2 of its aircraft flew down with the 2 million doses of COVID-19 Sinopharm vaccines from Beijing and arrived at the Bandaranaike International Airport in Katunayaka. This is the single largest consignment of vaccines brought to Sri Lanka so far. With today's shipment, Sri Lanka has received a total of 7.1 million doses of the Chinese-made Sinopharm vaccine so far since the delivery of 600,000 doses on 31st March. That was our main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
In Watchlight, Tourism Minister Prasanna Ranatunga said a new PCR testing laboratory will be set up at the Bandaranaike International Airport, Katunayaka, for passengers during the next 3 weeks with the aim of providing PCR test results within 3 hours. The vaccination program for those engaged in the tourism sector also commenced yesterday. Accordingly, over 5 million in the tourism sector will be administered COVID-19 vaccines. That was Watchlight. A bulletin of world news follows. Taking a look at the headlines of the world news. Australia, New South Wales confirms first COVID-related death in 10 months. Abiy Ahmed wins with huge majority in Ethiopian election. Woman aged 90 died with double COVID variant infection. Now the world news in detail. In Australia, New South Wales has reported its first COVID-related death of the current outbreak. The authorities said a woman in her 90s died in Sydney. She had contracted the virus in a family setting. The state reported 77 new cases today. There are now 52 people in hospital with 15 in intensive care. Sydney is currently in lockdown as Australia's largest city fights to contain the highly transmissible Delta strain of the virus. The reported death is the state's 57th and the first in 10 months. NSW Premier Gladys Berejiklian warned that the number of new daily infections would rise further tomorrow. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has won the country's delayed elections with an overwhelming majority. The board said Mr. Abiy's Prosperity Party won 410 out of 436 seats, giving him another 5-year term in office. However, a fifth of the country failed to carry out voting overall due to the insecurity and logistical problems. Polls were not held in the war-torn Tigray region, where many thousands are living in famine conditions. Another round of elections have been penned for the 6th September in the affected areas, but a date has not been confirmed for Tigray. The election had already been delayed due to the pandemic. It is possible to catch 2 COVID variants at the same time, experts are warning, after seeing a double infection in a 90-year-old woman who became sick with the alpha and beta types first identified in the UK and South Africa. The woman who died in March 2021 in Belgium had not been vaccinated. Her doctors suspect she contracted the infections from 2 different people. They believe it is the first documented case of its kind, and although rare, similar dual infections are happening. Her case is being discussed at this year's European Congress on Clinical Microbiology and Infectious Diseases. In January 2021, scientists in Brazil reported that 2 people had been simultaneously infected with 2 types of coronavirus, one of them a variant of concern called Gamma. With that, we conclude the world news. Prior to concluding, the headlines of the world news once again. Australia, New South Wales confirms first COVID-related death in 10 months. Abiy Ahmed wins with huge majority in Ethiopian election. Woman aged 90 died with double COVID variant infection. With that, we conclude the world news. Next up is the development news.
Development News is brought to you by
Quality matters than price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melva RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melva RB500, number 1 in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
The Department of Archaeology has decided to grant permission for the resumption of excavation work on the Tissa Maharama tank, which has sparked a heated debate. A Sino-Sri Lankan joint venture has launched a project to remove sand and silt from the Tissa Maharama tank. The Department of Archaeology took action to suspend the project for not obtaining permission from the department. This has been alleged that the Irrigation Department and the Ministry of Irrigation have illegally assigned a Chinese company to excavate soil and silt and sand in the tank using machinery without the permission from the Department of Archaeology. That was Development News. Next up is the Sports News.
Development News was brought to you by
Quality matters than price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melva RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melva RB500, number 1 in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
In sports news, Lionel Messi ended his wait for a first major international title as Argentina beat Brazil in the Copa America final in Rio's Maracanã Stadium. Messi, 34, dropped to the ground in joy at the full-time whistle and was swiftly mobbed by his teammates before being hurled in the air in celebration as he finally claimed top-level honours with his country in his 10th major tournament. He also helped end Argentina's 28-year spell since they last won the competition and was named player of the tournament after his 4 goals in the competition. Angel Di Maria proved the match winner with his superb lob after taking down Rodrigo de Paul's lofted pass. Messi had a chance to sign off the win but slipped with the goal at his mercy in what would have been the perfect finale for the Argentinian captain. Defending champions Brazil were disappointing with their only chances of note coming when Richarlison and Gabriel Barbosa forced saves from Emi Martinez. With that, we end sports news. The business news follows.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
As 2021 hits its halfway mark, the Hambantota International Port records an overall growth in its volumes and diversifications of services. The port's overall cargo handling volume has increased from 420,421 metric tons by the end of June 2020 to a significant 1,206,425 metric tons during the corresponding period this year. Hambantota International Port continued its operations without interruption throughout the pandemic and is now seeing the results of experienced port management combined with the dedicated services provided to its customers. That ends Business News.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic news, courtesy of
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
The state-of-the-art bridge under the construction in Kelaniya was connected at the centre yesterday. The new Kelaniya Bridge at Paliagoda was ceremonially connected at the centre by Highways Minister Johnston Fernando and other officials. The new Kelaniya Bridge project starts from the Colombo-Katunayaka Expressway at the Paliagoda Bridge Junction and ends at the Orugodawatta Junction and Port Access Junction. The bridge has 6 lanes from the end of the Colombo-Katunayaka Expressway to the Bandaranayaka roundabout and will be 4 lanes from there on to the Urugodawatta Ingurukade Junction and the port entrance. That ends Economic News.
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
Finally, it's a look at the weather report. Showers or thundershowers will occur at times in central and Sabaragamuwa provinces and in Galle and Mathura districts. Fairly heavy showers above 75 millimeters can be expected at some places. Several spells of showers will occur at western and northwestern provinces. Strong gusty winds up to 60 kilometers per hour are likely at times over western slope of the central hills, and gusty winds up to 50 kilometers per hour at times are likely in northern, north central, northwestern, western and southern provinces, Trincomalee district as well. That was the weather report.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
Prior to concluding this bulletin of news, the headlines once again. Measures are being taken to import the vaccines for the people in the country within shorter period of time. More than 8.5 million vaccines have already arrived in the country. New Finance Minister discusses the future economic activities in the country. The central bank says the country's economy shows a remarkable growth during pandemic. The government will inspect the food hygiene in the market. With that, we conclude the news.